Being smart doesn't protect you from manipulation. In some cases, it makes you an easier target. That sentence sounds backwards, so let's make it concrete. A brilliant negotiator gets talked into a bad deal by someone with half his experience. A sharp, analytical friend stays in a relationship everyone else can see as manipulative and explains it away better than anyone. A high-performing executive gets scammed by a con artist using a trick that wouldn't fool a teenager. If intelligence was really the defense people assume it is, none of this should happen. And yet it happens constantly, to some of the most capable people you know, maybe to you. Here's the part that actually explains it, and it's going to change how you think about your own mind. Intelligence isn't a shield against manipulation. In some specific, measurable ways, it's a weapon that manipulators learn to use against you, with your own cooperation. Welcome back to MindStick. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the actual psychological research on why smarter people get manipulated faster, not slower, the 3 mechanisms doing the damage, and the 1 habit that separates people who are hard to fool from people who are just hard to fool twice. Stick around because the 3rd mechanism is the one almost nobody sees coming, even after it's happened to them. Let's start by killing the assumption underneath all of this. Most people think manipulation gets stopped by logic. Spot the bad argument, reject it, done. But psychologist Keith Stanovich, who spent decades researching the relationship between intelligence and rational thinking, found something that should unsettle anyone who's proud of being the smart one in the room. He discovered that raw cognitive ability and resistance to bias are almost completely separate skills. He even coined a term for it, dysrationalia, the condition of being highly intelligent while still reasoning poorly. In his studies, people with high IQ scores were just as likely, sometimes more likely, to fall for what's called my-side bias, meaning they didn't reason more accurately, they just built better, more convincing justifications for what they already wanted to believe. Intelligence, in other words, doesn't make your reasoning more honest. It makes your reasoning more persuasive, including to yourself. Sit with that for a second because it's the foundation for everything else in this video. A manipulator doesn't need to get past your intelligence. They need to get underneath it and plant something that your intelligence will then defend on its own. Here's mechanism number 1, and it's the most common entry point. Manipulators rarely attack your logic directly because logic is exactly where smart people are strongest. Instead, they target something psychologist Robert Cialdini spent his career mapping: the automatic social scripts almost everyone runs on without thinking. Reciprocity, authority, social proof, commitment. These aren't intellectual arguments, they're behavioral triggers. And here's the uncomfortable part. They operate through a completely different channel than the one your intelligence patrols. You can have a brilliant analytical mind standing guard at the front door, checking every argument for logical flaws, while a manipulator walks straight through the side entrance using a small favor, a flattering comment about your expertise, or a fabricated sense of urgency. Your intelligence was never wrong. It was just watching the wrong door. Pattern interrupt. Because here's where it gets more specific to you, if you're someone people call smart. Mechanism number 2 is something researchers Caitlin Ramey and Stephen Garcia identified and named the earned dogmatism effect. Their studies found that when people feel genuinely expert or competent in an area, they don't just gain confidence, they earn in their own minds the right to stop being questioned. The more legitimately skilled you are, the more entitled you unconsciously feel to trust your own snap judgments without double-checking them. That sounds like a fair trade. You put in the work, you get to trust yourself more. Except manipulators know this pattern intimately, and they exploit it with a move that looks like a compliment. They flatter your expertise right before they ask you to skip your own scrutiny. You clearly already understand this better than most people, so I won't waste your time explaining. That line isn't respect. It's a targeted disarmament, aimed precisely at the place your guard is thinnest, which, for a smart person, is usually the exact spot where you already believe you don't need one. And this connects directly to something Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman spent his career explaining. Kahneman described 2 systems running your thinking. System 1, fast, automatic, effortless, and System 2, slow, deliberate, effortful. Smart people aren't smart because they run everything through System 2. Nobody has the mental bandwidth for that all day, every day. Smart people are smart partly because they've built excellent shortcuts, fast heuristics that are usually right, which frees up their System 2 for harder problems. But a good manipulator's entire skill set is manufacturing situations that feel like System 1 territory. Quick, low stakes, socially smooth, when they're actually System 2 decisions in disguise. The very efficiency that makes you sharp in your field becomes the exact blind spot that gets exploited outside it. Here's mechanism number 3, and this is the one almost nobody sees because it doesn't happen during the manipulation. It happens after. Remember Stanovich's my side bias from earlier in this video? This is where it turns from a vulnerability into a trap that closes shut. Once a smart person has made a decision, even a bad one nudged along by manipulation, their above-average reasoning ability doesn't switch off. It redirects. Instead of being used to evaluate the decision, it gets used to defend it. This is what researchers call motivated reasoning, and the disturbing finding across multiple studies is that people with stronger analytical skills are actually more effective at constructing after-the-fact justifications for choices they've already made, not less. They can build a more airtight, more articulate, more convincing case for staying in a bad deal, a bad relationship, or a bad belief than someone with fewer cognitive resources could. The same intelligence that made the manipulation possible in the first place now gets weaponized to protect it from correction. That's the real reason smart people don't just fall for manipulation. They frequently stay fallen, longer, and defend the fall more skillfully than anyone watching from outside can believe. Let's put all 3 mechanisms together, because this is the part that actually matters. The manipulator bypasses your logic using automatic social triggers. Your intelligence was never built to police. Your own sense of earned expertise gets used against you, flattered into skipping the exact scrutiny you'd normally apply. And once the decision is made, your analytical skill gets redirected from evaluating the choice to defending it, sealing the trap from the inside, using your own strongest asset as the lock. None of this means intelligence is worthless against manipulation. It means intelligence was never the right tool for this particular job, the same way a scalpel is useless against a bruise. The actual defense isn't smarter thinking. It's a completely different skill, one that has almost nothing to do with IQ. Noticing the automatic response before your intelligence gets involved to rationalize it. Researchers who study this call it decoupling, the ability to catch yourself mid-reaction and ask, before committing to a justification, would I actually agree to this if it were phrased plainly, without the flattery, the urgency, or the social pressure attached to it? That single pause, inserted before your reasoning engine kicks into gear, is worth more than raw cognitive horsepower because it interrupts the exact sequence every manipulator is counting on. Here's the uncomfortable truth to end on, and it's worth remembering the next time you catch yourself thinking, that would never work on me. That thought itself is exactly the kind of earned dogmatism confidence Ramey's research warns about. The belief that your competence in general makes you immune in specific situations, which is precisely the gap manipulators are trained to find and walk through. The people who are hardest to manipulate aren't the smartest people in the room. They're the people who've accepted that being smart was never going to be the thing that saved them, and built a different habit instead. So tell me, which of these 3 mechanisms do you recognize in yourself? Getting bypassed through a social trigger, instead of a bad argument, having your own expertise flattered into skipping scrutiny, or defending a decision better after the fact than you evaluated it before? Drop the number in the comments. And if this changed how you think about your own mind, subscribe to MindStick, because next time, we're breaking down exactly how to build that pause before a manipulator ever gets the chance to use it. Thank you for being here. Goodbye, and see you next time.